Welcome, everybody, to the Mansfield Buzz. All right, everybody, welcome to the Mansfield Buzz. It is Thursday at 2 o'clock Central Time, and we're here every Thursday on YouTube covering our medium to small businesses in the DFW, but mainly Mansfield and surrounding area. And before we get to our guest today, we want to tell you we are located on YouTube at youtube.com at Mansfield TX Buzz. Please go over and check out our channel. If you're live with us today, please feel free to comment on the live stream, but it'll also be on demand as soon as we're over today. So please go sign up for our page, hit that little notification bell you see there. So anytime we come in with a live broadcast or put some new content up, you'll be alerted on your contact system and notifications right on your phone. Also, if you want to be a guest on our show, you can email me at hurdie@hurdieburke.com. Yes, that's my real name, Hurdie, Hurdie, at hurdieburke.com. I will let you know, Jordan, I'm real excited. We're still averaging that 2,500, 2,700 people every 28 days. We're around, 40, 45 part-time hours monthly. And that's a channel that started in March. So we're really excited about that. And we are now booked all the way through January 9th. So meet our host, Jordan, meet our guest, which we'll introduce here in a minute, Harry and Bellann. And we're going to do a great introduction for them. And guys, ladies, we are getting ready to put some stuff up on screen we've never done before. So yours truly is under pressure to make sure I pull up the right screens, right screenshots, make sure it all stays smooth. So Harry's happy, Bellann's happy. And today we are talking to Maverick Financial. Their tagline is, I love it, moving you forward, which is fantastic tagline. So Jordan, jump in and let's get to meet these folks and find out. We're going to talk about a deep subject today, and I'm really excited about it. Yeah. Welcome, you guys.
Dude, welcome to the show, and thanks for coming. We're going to have a really fun discussion. It's not often that we get financial experts here, so it's good knowledge to have. And I definitely don't know nearly as much as I should, so I'm definitely going to be taking notes and taking everything in. But before we start, one thing that I always like to ask, and I think is fascinating, is just what took you, what your journey and what took you to take this path. It requires a lot of specialty knowledge. You've had to study this. Finances and the financial world moves so quick. So it's got to be a labor of love. So I'd love to know, just what moved you to get into this field. And I guess let's start with you, Bellann. What brought you to this point?
Well, for whatever reason, prior to becoming a financial advisor, I worked for accounting firms. I was a chief financial officer, and my job was to manage, the organization. So in case you don't know, and this is typical of most accounting firms, they'll have several partners, and each one of those partners have a book of business, and that book of business has different specialties. They're actually small businesses themselves operating under the umbrella of a big firm, So in that line, what I would do was I would work with us on a specific strategy for them to grow their business, which would grow the overall practice. But as I got to get to know a lot of these people and aligning their performance at their job, to grow the organization, I started realizing that a lot of that was very familiar with an individual's personal plan to grow. I ended up at a CPA firm that also did financial planning and found that it was the same thing. Everyone has, whether they have it written down or not, you have a plan. You have one that's written or you have one that you're leaving up to chance, is what I tell people. But when we sit down with folks, I'm doing the same thing. I'm working with them on their personal strategy and helping them do that. But I felt like I gained a lot of experience because that's what I was doing to manage all those practices under an overall firm. And I really like it. I've always liked that one-on-one human interaction and helping people grow.
That's phenomenal. That and what a front seat. Like that's really cool that you get to see all of it from a bird's eye view. And that chief financial officer seat is really cool because you get to look at the numbers, but also you get to like implement the strategy part of it, which is when you get to the strategy of numbers is a different ballgame.
It is. And what's funny is you should take it, for anyone that's listening, your personal strategy versus a business strategy. You don't always get it right the first time. You give advice and we say, hey, let's see if this is going to move the numbers. And if it doesn't, you go to plan B, or you refine plan A, or do whatever. And it's the same thing. A personal plan is very similar to an overall business strategy.
And that's really cool.
I would say change is part of life, right?
It is. It is.
So it's built in. And Harry, what about you? What brought you here?
Well, it's a kind of a similar story in some respects, in that we like to help people, but it kind of started. If you took a poll of people, you'd probably find that a lot of people don't actually work in their field that they went to college for, and I actually do. So my degree is in finance, insurance, real estate. The concentration was real estate. I'm not going to tell you what year it was, but it was a while ago. And the funny thing is, I did that for a while. I got away from it, opened couple of service businesses, built them up with a few stub toes in between, and eventually sold them. And I had a advisor myself from another firm, and she suggested that I should come join their firm. I declined that firm, but I really enjoyed what she had done for me, and I saw that it was an opportunity to help people still, and it was all in my field. So I kind of took that with both feet, and that was just about 8 years ago when I sold those businesses. And so I met Bellann at one of our broker dealers, and we worked well together. And we have a couple of other partners that we also work with, one in Waco and one here in the Dallas area. So it's just been a really good experience. And because we have that personal financial planning background, and then because we've both been in like the numbers part of businesses, we really enjoy working with small, medium size, even larger businesses.
That's fascinating.
I wanted to let Jordan, hold on a second. I just want to let everybody know those two bios I put up, I have actual links to those. And when the show's over and we go back and put the description YouTube, I'll have links so you can guys go read about both our guests. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. And I love how both of you guys have experience from the user perspective, right? So it's not like you're only sitting on the side of the advice, where you've actually been in the space where you implement the advice you guys are giving. So you have a much more 360 view of the subject.
We like to think so, because that's actually our differentiator between other advisors. Not to knock any other advisors, but a lot of them don't have that business experience.
Yeah, and that's huge, because you can see much more clearly.
Yeah, and I would say in this market, in this time, experience matters. Okay, it's really simple. I use that term all the time. All right.
For sure.
So we got some fun stuff to cover. I actually have notes today. I just want to let you know, this is what Harry sent me, okay? We're actually following kind of a script kind of cool thing today. So thank you for that, my friend. That helps.
Well, we are
really
planners.
Thank you. No, it's great. Thank you. Love it. Love it.
But
I do.
one of the things that I think it's awesome that you guys, like really can prepare for, you're going to answer some questions that we're all thinking, and it's on everybody's mind. One of the ones, like there's so much stuff on the news and in social media. Everybody's talking about the economy, the stock market, so many variables that can go in affect our day-to-day or future. Like there's a bombardment of information. Like, how do we make sense of all of that?
But let me tell you, I envy people, that don't really know how to, or don't have time is probably more accurate, how to keep track of all the stuff that Harry and I have to keep track of. We have team meetings every morning from our research team at LPL Financial. We do our own research. We're required to do continuing education, and it's time consuming, and we have to stop and start. And what does this mean? And what does this say? So someone who doesn't do that and they think they're going to wrap their heads around it by reading a couple of articles on the internet, that's tough. And that's tough. And Jordan, I know you didn't mean it this way, but you said, a lot of times it's hard to digest this financial information. We're used to those eyeballs rolling in the back of your head, when we start talking numbers. So that's not going to offend us. But what we're going to try to do is add clarity to some of that stuff. Your question exactly is, how do you make sense of all of it? And I think the best way is just to say, just let us, or let someone like us, whether it's us or somebody else, let us add clarity to that. And we'll try to be explainers today. So the first thing that I would tell you is we'd like to break it up into 3 parts. The first one is what's going to happen within the markets and the economy. And then what does that mean to you as a business owner? And also at the end of the day, as a business owner, you're an individual. So we have, solutions and things to talk about that. And then the main thing is, we've just started the 3rd quarter or the 4th quarter. And what do you need to do between now and the end of the year? So that's what Harry and I are going to talk about.
Cool.
Just trying to add clarity through those 3 points as best we can.
Plus the elections, that's on everybody's mind. We get reminded of it about every few minutes on the television. It's running up here, every 3 minutes there's a new commercial, whether you want it or not.
Oh yeah, you'll be getting on the TV, on your phone,
or an email,
or text,
or more text, or more email. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So, Jordan, I'm going to pop this up. Then I think I'm going to bring up this screen. I think they have one we're going to review here really quickly. So.
Yeah, because that's the burning question, right? That's always the hot term everybody keeps bringing up: the economy this, the economy that. And so, can you tell us a little bit about the economy as a whole, and just give us clarity? Because you guys, as we talked about earlier, can understand and make sense out of all the noise and bring it to something that we can understand. And I'd love for you to give us a little bit of clarity on what the what the economy is actually doing.
And which slide am I on? The right one?
No, that's a little bit further down. Yeah,
okay.
We don't need the slide right at this moment.
Okay,
if you want to take it down, because we'll delve into that in just a little bit.
Gotcha. Perfect.
The first one, though, I think that we talked about, that I think to add clarity to, is when we talk about the economy and when we talk about the markets, those are 2 different things. So when you see things happening in the market, that doesn't mean that it's the economy. And I'll give you a really good example, and it's unfortunate that we know the difference. So remember, during the pandemic, the markets were in the tank. I mean, the economy was like in the tank, but the markets, they were on fire. They were operating at numbers that no one was expecting. Right. So that's an example of how they're not the same thing. And one thing to know about the markets, I'll talk about that. Harry will talk about the economy. The markets are those agencies that the S&P 500, the Dow Jones, the Russell Index, that's tracking all the money that people are putting into companies to help them grow. In these type of situations, you're putting in $100 and you're hoping to grow that to 150 and 200, even though sometimes it may go down to 90, 50, but you want that money to grow. You are buying parts of a business, or you're loaning them money, depending on what part of the market that you are. But we like to tell people that the markets are data driven. People look at data and they want to say, okay, this is going to tell me what I need to invest in. But then there's also all of these outside influences. It might be that the war in Ukraine started. It might be a pandemic. The one that's driving it right now is the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve, because the markets are at an all-time high right now, the Federal Reserve is trying to say, look, all of this is causing inflation. And what do we need to do to bring that inflation down? I know a lot of times presidents, they take credit for when things are good, and point to other directions. They do this, when things are bad. But The president can influence inflation a little bit through policies and stuff, but mostly it's the Fed that sets the inflation rates and everything. And so be mad at who you want to be mad at, but make it for something else, because it's usually not inflation. What I would tell you that the Fed does is they're going to try to speed up the economy or slow it down. And right now, and they do that by managing these interest rates that affects the banks directly. And because we all need banks to operate, then that's how it affects us down. How that Fed links down to the individual investor or just us everyday folks, whether we want to buy a house, get a loan for our business and things like that. And what they're trying to do, and you may hear it, it's called a soft landing. And what does that mean? A soft landing means that they're trying to bring inflation down without causing a recession. If they bring it down too fast, that little system that holds everything up and keeps everything going may collapse, and then it causes everything to slow down too much. So when you hear them say, "Hey, we're talking about the Federal Reserve," which is the one that runs the monetary policy, the most powerful bank, we would tell you in the country, of course, but it's probably the world, that have a lot of impact on some of these decisions that run our monetary policy. So that's what we would tell you, that it's data driven, but there's outside forces as well. And just know that they don't sound like they're predictable. And in a minute sense, they're not predictable, but in a larger sense, they are predictable. But that uncertainty is what causes volatility in the market. And just know that the economy and the market are two different things. There's different rules that we live by in trying to determine, what they're going to tell us. And then I guess, Harry, you're going to tell us about the economy side of the question.
Yeah, so two totally different things. And they are two total, people often put them into one big bowl. They are two different things. They are intertwined in some respects, though. The Fed has two mandates. They want to provide maximum employment and stable prices. So that's what they're doing, and they have a couple of tools. One that we hear all the time, the Fed rate cuts. They control the interest rates, and the interest rate that the Fed sets is what's called the interest-free rate. So if the U.S. government is in trouble, then the currency may not be dollars anymore. It may be bottles of water, right? We may not have places to live. We're in chaos. I mean, that's why it's the risk-free rate, and everything else is set above that. Car loans, mortgage loans, etc. Everything is set above that, and And famously, we've had, we always are in this cycle. We're always in this business cycle that's going up and down, up and down. We're either in a recession or we're in a recovery. We're in one of those two. And, we're briefly in a peak or a valley in those sessions. And the question is, where are you and what do you do about it, right? So, and there's different things to do at different times. And it's not always bad necessarily being in a recession. We find that, in a recession, sometimes, particularly small businesses, actually do well, because as you're coming out of that, some of their competition may not have survived, unfortunately, right? I know that, in a recession before, I had a different type of business. I bought a lot of equipment, at a discount, because, I was able to pick it up, and I got a lot of clients because they weren't being serviced well and everybody else was scared. So sometimes that's good. So it's since we're always in this cycle, there's just different things you do at different times. So the question is right now, where are we? And this will be a good place to put that slide up that has the red light, yellow light, and green light. And because we have the other one, because we have that one. Yeah, because we have a lot of asset managers that we like and we listen to. This one is actually from Franklin Templeton. They have a division called ClearBridge, and this is one that we use a lot because simple is good, and this is obviously red, yellow, green. Just like your stoplight. And it's telling you that, back over in 2020, we were in a recession. 2001, we were in a recession. 2007 through 2009, we were in a recession. It's given you all of the basic recessions we've been in for a while. And, famously, Ben Bernanke in 2007 said, hey, I think we got it. Chairman of the Fed, we're going to have a soft landing. And they actually did not. And they stuck a very hard landing. And we had, a number of years of stunted growth because of it. In 2001, the dot-com bubble, and back in the 1981, we had soft landings, and the markets did really well. So the current one is showing that the Fed is actually doing a good job. We're moving from all reds to greens and yellows, and the ones that are left are actually job sentiment, ISM new orders, that's manufacturing orders, and the yield curve. And the yield curve is going to be a sticky one. It's not going to go immediately. The ISM new orders just came out the other day. It's at 47. 42 is recessionary. I expect that one to go green. And the jobs reports came out just the other day. They were a little difficult. They were a little troubling in some respects. But I mean, if you looked back and you said, hey, we've got 4.1% unemployment, and we didn't have this backdrop, we would probably say, hey, that we're doing pretty good. We got 96% of the population working. So it's kind of a difference of perspective, don't you think?
Yeah, a little bit.
These variables that are listed here on the left, I think what they've taught us is that when these are in the red or headed towards the red, that's the predictor of a recession. Yeah. So in the red, yellow, green, when you see the yellow, it's like, okay, heads up, what's going on there? Versus, and then the red X, you don't, as you can see, as Harry was pointing out, where you see where there's a majority of red X's, then all of these variables that are being measured, they're all below some performance level.
Gotcha.
And these are what's called LEIs, or leading economic indicators. They're leading ones, so they're not lagging ones. These are all leading indicators.
And one of the, you mentioned I'm not familiar with is the yield curve. Could you define what that is?
Yeah, you want me to take that? Yeah, I'll take that one because I actually do that one a lot. So just picture a graph, right? And you have on the bottom of the graph is time. And then on the left side of the graph, you have growth, so you're going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as it goes up. And then on the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the bottom means years. And the one along the left is a percent of growth, right? So normally what we understand, I think, about an investment is the longer, if you want a higher return, you have to leave it in the market longer, right? For that to start in year one, and you want it to go up to 5% growth, you're going to have to leave it longer to reach that 5%. That's a traditional curve, or the yield curve. It's yielding that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5%. When the yield curve is inverted, it's the opposite, and that's what we're in now. When it inverts, that's usually a sign of recession. It hasn't happened, and it's been inverted for how long, Harry? A couple of years, maybe?
Yes. Before the recession, it wasn't inverted. Yes. And
so what's happening now is you can actually be in certain investments. What we're talking about is you can be there for 1 year and earn 5. And if you're in it in 5 years, you earn 1. It's inverted. It's the opposite. And they usually don't last that long. And I think this has been the longest inversion. But Harry will tell you later, as a business owner, why that's important for you to know about that yield curve.
Good.
That's a great question. I hope that explains it.
It did.
Yeah. It's like that Wimpy in the old cartoon, I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today, kind of thing.
So my question is that if you go back and look at the markets, they go way back, and you look at the consistency of growth, even though there's this roller coaster of up and down, it started here and it's way up here, right? Even though there was down points. So the people that hung in there
Right.
and said, I'm gonna trust that this history is going to repeat itself here,
Right.
go through the down cycle, but end up becoming the winners, right? Because
Yes.
they were willing to stick with it rather than bail,
Right.
and not take advantage of the upswing, right? So
And
yeah.
Herdy, that's exactly right. I love your phrase roller coaster, because that's
Right.
exactly what it is. Even though it's going up and down, you'll see that the overall trend is up, right?
Yeah.
And I hate to call it a game, but the name of the game is, when do you need the money? Because you don't want to access that money while it's in a down period. You want to access that money while it's up, right?
Yeah.
You don't want
Yeah.
to. You
Yeah.
don't want to. The question is to buy low, sell high. You don't want to sell low, buy high, and sell low. And a lot of
No.
that is very fear driven. When people do that.
Yeah, I see that as a double loss, because if you've already lost the gain and then you take it out, you have no chance of recovering
That's exactly right.
from that. So I'm almost seeing like you're in a double, it's like in golf when a guy makes a birdie and another guy makes a bogey, he gets 2 extra strokes on that hole. So, I've always often said history has always proven that if you stick with something long enough and you don't pull, you'll do really well, because that's just been our history with our stock market or with our investment. So yeah. All right. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt the flow, but
No, that's excellent. So, and actually just kind of expand on that one. But there's an old saying, it's time in the market, not timing the market.
like that.
And
That should be your tagline.
yeah, well, I didn't invent it. Yeah, I don't
Okay.
know.
All right.
Yeah, but it's an old adage, and it's really true. And we do financial education sometime, and we often do this when we're doing particularly younger people, is that if you go to our website and there's financial calculators on there. And so I tell them, the fastest way to be a millionaire. And they're like, well, they think that's, you should invest in Bitcoin or something that, or some risky asset. And I was like, no, it's just, you put $5,000 a year into a fund. And if it averages 8% and you get it in there 40 years, you're going to be a millionaire. It's just, It's just math. So, and it opens a lot of eyes when you think of it that way.
I like it.
It's behavioral finance. And that's also one of the things, there's a famous study done, I think, was it Vanguard that did it, Bellann, that says, that's one of the reasons that an advisor is useful to investors, is that the discipline to not sell out when the market's down is usually the advisor is saying, we have a plan, we built this for stress, let's not panic. Sort of
you have that extra filter that can protect you from yourself.
Correct.
It is. Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
I know that, things that happen every day can just sway us so much, and we can make emotional decisions and then maybe not be so accurate with them. And speaking of, things that stir up emotions, Bellann, can we maybe hear a little about this? Because
yes, let's just instill more fear.
Oh God, here we go.
So many things about the elections.
I know.
And what's going to happen?
Right. So let's start with some facts.
Yes,
Hurley, why don't you start with that first slide that we had there at the beginning?
Okay, hang on. Yeah, let me pull it up and I'll get rid of the question real quick. Let me pull it up here. Thank you. Let's go back. This one right here.
Yes. So as Harry mentioned, we work with a lot of partners that provide us data. We took this one from Janice Henderson, a very well-respected investment company. And they've kind of done it very concisely here from 1937 to 2024, what has happened with elections. So if you look on the left side of the screen in that orange line, it says for all years from 1937 to now, the average return on the S&P has been 12%, 12.07. In the presidential election years, right below that, it's been just up over 10. And then in non-election years, it's 12.72, right? So all of that, we hear, and sometimes people are saying, oh, I'm making 20% in the market, or I lost this percent in the market. Just know that when you see markets perform, if you're keeping up with that, when they say the markets went up today or the markets went down today, everything didn't go up at once and everything didn't go down. It's a mixture of things that went up and down. Okay. So you need to look at your own portfolio to make sure that how it was impacted when you do hear about those, the markets went up or the markets were down. But if you look on the right side of the screen, it'll say market performance based on party control. So on the right side, and we're just talking about the the average return on the S&P 500. If there's a unified government, let's say all three branches of government are Democrat, then the return is about 12%, just a tad over. If it's all Republican, it's 16%. Okay. And then, of course, I think we find that research finds that people prefer a divided government, whether if the president is one party, they like Congress to be a different one, and vice versa, right? So under a divided government, if there's a Democratic president and Republican houses, the return on the S&P is 15, almost 16%. And then a divided government from a Republican president and Democrat, or however it's broken up in the House, it's 9%. But remember, that's going back from 1937 to now. Yeah. The news for this is that the swings are not that big between parties, right? That's the takeaway. We could get into the minutia of this, but you don't, at the moment, based on prior performance, if one president, depending on who it is, or regardless of who it is, the markets may be volatile, especially during the elections, because the markets don't like uncertainty, because they don't know what is going to happen. Then the markets may fall. They're called pullbacks or dips. You'll hear these different phrases. There'll be a correction, but it's part of that up and down. So a pullback is when the markets fall 3%, and those happen several times throughout the year. On average, it's about 3 times. A correction is 10%. That happens at least once that we know of, and everything. And then, of course, if it dips more than 20, we're in a bear market, at that point. And then it's a climb to try to get back up to, to where we were. But the main thing that I would tell you is the reason why the markets do get volatile ahead of time, and maybe after, is because they don't like the uncertainty. Yeah. But know this, people know how to make money. People that know how to make money, they know how to make money, and they don't get emotional about it. If one president wins, they know this president is probably going to promote this type of sectors within the economy, and they're going to invest in that. If another president wins, they're going to say, these are the type of sectors that this type of president usually pushes growth in, and then we're going to invest in that. And as you can see, there's not emotion. There's not a political divide driving some of those decisions that they're making, because they know they're waiting for the facts, and knowing what they know about how each party could possibly operate, then that's how they make their decision about investing. It's not an emotional party type investment that is driving there.
And I also, Bellann, I'm also hearing you say balance is important for the vision, right? That one party can't run the whole show, because they could take you down a volatile road, right? That it needs to be balanced.
They could. If you could, but if you look at even the unified and then the divided one, it's not
still good.
Okay. It's still very close to double digits in every scenario.
So the investment community is looking for the opportunities within helping people with their retirement investments, right? To find the best vehicle to put the money in for the best gain. So it doesn't matter. And depending on how the focus is on what are important is what they're going to go look at. So yeah, I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's probably why it's so consistent, I would imagine.
Yeah, it does, because I'm telling you, these people that know how to make money, they know how
Know
to
how to
make,
make money.
and they
Yeah.
take the emotion out of it. And probably the number one, I would say, tell me if you disagree, Harry, rule for having a financial advisor is taking the emotion away from these investment
Yeah.
Right. That's for
strategies,
sure.
right?
And at the end of the day, we're all Americans. We're not, red or blue. We're all Americans.
Yep.
Yep. Well
We need
said.
advice and we need help with what to do and best avenues for our money. I love it. That's good. All right, let me remove that screen. Get us all back here looking good.
Yeah, and to like keep pulling on the thread a little bit, this it's interesting how the elections have an impact on the markets, and I found it interesting how it's 10% on election year versus 12 on the non-election year. So there's obviously this like emotional, psychological impact, and I'm curious, what is the impact on our businesses and on our personal taxes?
It is, and the advice that we give to business owners about the markets and the economy and what the markets are going to mean for that is kind of like what I mentioned before, in that if you have amount of money, or let's say you have a strategic plan on what you're going to grow, the advice that we're going to give is going to be influenced by our advice that we're going to give you is we're going to help you get there in a manner that has less risk, the less risk by the volatility. We're saying, you're going to need the money in 3 years or 10 years, whenever you're going to need it. That's probably what's going to drive our decision. But from the business and personal taxes, a lot of times they're going to be it's going to be very similar advice, just depending on what your business entity is. Harry, can you think of other things regarding anything in specific regarding the elections that I think maybe just not let your personal political affiliation or fear drive some of this? Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's also there's some big problems that whoever gets into office has to solve, and they're not secrets, right? So we know we have a very large deficit. We know that has to be tackled, and it's not sustainable to continue that way. So the question is, how do you do it? How do you whittle it down? So that's going to be a big conundrum to solve, and it is going to require both parties to come together and tackle that problem. And a big part of it is that in a stimulation sense, a couple of the two administration ago passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017. And that's set to sunset at the end of 2025, 12/31/2025. And there's some pretty big provisions in there that are going to have some compromise. And some of those things involve how we're taxed and who gets taxed and how that works and how simple it's going to be. So, I mean, we changed entirely the way we filled out our forms in 2017, right? That it was simplified. Nobody itemizes deductions anymore. Only a minute percentage of people can do that. Is that going to continue? Is it not going to continue? That's going to make a difference in how preparation is done and how people plan. Estate taxes are a big issue that are going to have to be dealt with. There's a lot of difference of opinion in the parties about who's wealthy and who's not wealthy, right? So I'm not saying that as a mean thing. I'm saying that's just a fact. So there's going to be questions about how that's going to have to be solved, and that's probably going to require some compromise as well. There's some unrealized capital gains have been thrown out on the table, and how that might be able to help. And we all have an opinion on that. So all of these things are going to have to be dealt with, and we just have to be conscious that we have to elect people who are going to have good sense to solve these problems. I guess is my thought.
You know what? And I'll tell you, if I could, the thing I think that startled me the most when I heard it, and I say startle, that's probably too big a word, but it was Joe Manchin. Just to give an idea about the taxes, we're at 35 trillion right now, and then they've projected soon, if continued to grow, it's going to be 50 trillion. But Joe Manchin made a comment that I just remember, it kind of made me stop in my tracks, as he said, this debt is so big that we can't tax our way out of it, we can't make cuts our way out of it, and we can't borrow our way out of it. That's how big it is. But neither side wants to talk. I mean, they'd be a fool to talk about how they're going to address this, but they've kicked the can down the road and they're going to have to do something. Now, in these tax cuts, that the Trump tax cuts that retire in or sunset in 2025, that doesn't mean that everything is going to go back up. It means they're going to go back to what they were before. So don't let that scare anybody. It's going to be something that we're used to. And then usually if the other party wins, they know who, regardless of which party's in, they have to do something. We're there. We have got to do something. And when you look at the market and when you look at the spending, just from a big picture standpoint, when you look at the budget, our budget is 71% of it is the mandatory stuff. It's Social Security, it's Medicare. Yeah. It's going to be very hard to cut those things. So the discretion, what's left is a discretionary spending, which is at 30%. And that's national defense. It's veterans benefits. It's transportation. They're very little compared to the things that are mandatory. So they're going to have to work together, and they're going to have to get real clever real soon about how to handle this. There are groups, regardless of what you hear, on the news and stuff, the us and them type thing. There are groups in government that have ways to try to solve this, and they are kind of savvy. I hope they take traction on some of it. But as an individual or as a business owner, your taxes probably are going to change. And I would say it'll change over a period of years. I doubt that it'll be sudden, right, Harry? I mean, like when they talk about cutting Social Security, it would be for people in the future, probably not someone that's receiving it now. So, because they can't, they know that would be way too hard on an individual. So, you don't have to worry about grandma not, getting any Social Security, probably not getting any very much right now anyway. But it would be for future. It all has to be to future things. And that's what's tough. I feel like when we talk about voting today, we're voting because of all this debt. We're voting for our kids. That's who's going to bear the brunt of it.
And I have some thoughts on that. No big deal. Just some observations. The value of the dollar, is being somewhat trying to be fought against a little bit. That's been our backbone for a long time, right? I imagine you guys are extremely tired doing your homework, trying to keep up with what's going on. And so I respect y'all's industry, because right now you're trying to lead people through what I consider to be big, huge minefields, right? But again, not the emotional side, just trying to help them stay the course and figure out the best means for their retirement or whatever they need to do. So there's a lot going on. And I will tell you, I'm retired. I have Social Security, retirement, and I still work because I love to work. But I will tell you that I am nervous for the next generation that's putting their money into all these taxes and their businesses and may not have, a big future. They need to start very young. They really do. That's my message. Start in your 20s. Get going. Start now.
It's probably never been more true than now.
Yeah, exactly. So I am my 2 cents. Sorry about that. Didn't mean
no, that's great. We love your questions. Kind of help us tell the story that we're wanting to address to our viewers.
Yeah. So if you can't get out of these 3 things, that you mentioned, Bellann, and our the governor mentioned, then what do we do?
Well, they're going to have to work together.
But if they never do that, what happens?
Yeah, they're going to have to work together.
Okay. You know, they're just going to get forced through the gauntlet. That's my opinion. So this is interesting, and whether it's true or not, I had no way to validate it, but I trusted the source. When you hear the people that are running for office this year or whatever, that's a certain percentage of people that are talking to a base. They know that, you know, fear drives a lot of things sometimes, especially, you know, but hopefully there's a lot more saner heads that are prevailing within our Congress, and you know, they'll have to do something to payroll taxes. You know, there's limits. You know, once you reach a certain FICA limit, when you make money, then you don't pay any more FICA. Then they might remove that. That would replenish a lot of money. There's certain things that can be done, but it's going to have to be a combination of things. And nobody, when I say nobody, none of the candidates like to talk about it because it's a minefield. It's a minefield, you know, but they have to do it. They're going to have to do it.
And just like I was saying, you know, it's like we're all Americans, right? And Americans are good at solving problems. I mean, our whole really country was built on solving a problem, right? So we solved a problem. The very beginning of it was solving a problem. And since then, we've been doing that ever since. So I think I'm very optimistic about the future. And there's still opportunity here. And the small businesses, you know, this isn't all doom and gloom. I mean, we're going to go through cycles. It's going to go through those cycles. Act accordingly. You know, run your business, run it well. Hire an advisor.
And I didn't mean to cause fear. That was the thing I was talking against. But I was just talking about the budget, how that is such a big deal that's hanging back there in the background. They're talking about, you know, let's say they're talking about football or something over here, but there's chess happening in the background.
Hey, listen, every business needs a coach. I've always said I had a coach. I have a John Maxwell coach since 2011, and I will tell you that every good business needs leadership and advisors. So, you know, don't act like you know everything about money. Get some help. Get some help. Get some help. That's my advice.
Yeah, and you know when you know Tom Brady, Tiger Woods, all these guys that were fantastic and masters of, you know, the GOATs of their sports. Guess what? They had a coach. You know,
absolutely. That's right. All right, so we're bumping up here, and I know we don't want to keep everybody too long here.
George, I know we had a little specific views on, or you know, viewers, the business owners, and you had a little bit about kind of like the way you 4 stages that you stage business development.
Right. Yeah. So that's exactly right. So I mean, we kind of look at businesses in 4 stages. You know, so your startup businesses, the ones that are just kind of getting going, then the ones that are growing and scaling. They've kind of passed the point where things are tenuous, and you know they've kind of figured out their systems and their processes. Now they're set to grow and scale, and that brings a whole new set of challenges. And then most businesses then, you know, enter into what we call a maturity phase. You know, profits are a little more stable, expenses are stable, employment is stable. It's like things are more predictable. They aren't in that high growth phase anymore, but they're cranking out, you know, their product, they're paying their employees. It's a machine that's working well. And then the next phase is, you know, nothing remains the same. Everything is dynamic, not static. So, you know, what do you do to transition businesses, you know, either within the businesses or for ownership, you know, and a lot of the people that we see, Herdy and Jordan at the events that we see each other at, they're smaller businesses. They're probably in either startup or growth mode. A few of them are in maturity mode, but a few of them are thinking about, what am I going to do next? Am I going to head off and, you know, to my next adventure, whether that's like a a new opportunity. I want to start a different type of business. I want to do something different. I want to start a nonprofit, or whether they're just thinking, okay, it's time to hang it up and let the next generation go for it, and or the next set of leaders for this business. So we kind of look at businesses in those 4 stages, and they have pretty unique things that they need at each stage of the business. If you're in startup, I mean, we tell them pedal faster. It's all about cash flow.
Yeah.
Always about the cash flow.
Take that low hanging fruit and go, baby. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we've worked with several there. We're always amazed. Bellann and I are always amazed at, the ideas that they come up with, the energy they have, and the way they can figure out problems. And they're like bringing a different thing to the market. It's always a lot of fun with the startups. But, it's difficult. And sometimes people don't kind of count that cost. It's fun, but it's difficult at the same time. It's kind of exhausting for a while. Yeah, you have to take some breaks and pace yourself, and we help those guys a lot of times with basic cash flow, right? How do you manage the cash flow? And we work with those small businesses that way. In the scaling and growth phase, that is sometimes it's more like trying to keep the genie in the bottle. Sometimes they're growing so fast that they can't keep their systems and processes working. Bellann is exceptionally good at helping set up systems and processes for businesses, and we've kind of helped them set targets of where their revenue should be, what their how their system should be running behind the scenes to meet those targets, right? So those are fun things to do. And then as you get into maturity, a lot of times it's about how you're going to reward drivers of that business. Sometimes it's not even the owner. It may be, it may be the brewmaster at the brew pub. It may be, an engineer who has a certain process. It may be a salesperson that, brings in a lot of business. And, if you don't reward those guys, guess where they go? They go start their own business, or they go to your competitor. So how do you reward those guys and retain them? So, in your growth phase, maybe you started a retirement plan. In your maturity phase, you're going to start rewarding some key drivers and protecting them too, also. And then when you get to that phase where you're thinking about the next phase, there's a whole series of things that you have to do to get ready for the next phase. And it depends on what your goals are, right? But they have some commonalities. It's taking away some of the risks. And, with risk, you either transfer it, you accept it, or you mitigate it, right? So which one are you going to do? How are you going to move those needles on that? And then once you've taken away the risks, it's making sure that you have all of your tangible numbers in place, because those are going to judge your business. But then also the intangibles, which drive value, right? So sometimes, it's kind of like table stakes for you to have your tangibles, your good cash flow, good customer base, all of those things. Those are super important. But then, the intangibles are what really drives the business. I mean, there's a lot of people who make electric cars, right? But there's only one Tesla, right? So a lot of people really love Tesla, but some people hate it, right? But it has certain differentiators within the company that make it more valuable than others, and the market's borne that out, right? So they value it very highly because the stock has done well. So those are some thoughts about how we do that. So if you're kind of coming up to the end of the year, so a couple of things to think about is, are you below the line or above the line, right? Did you meet, and maybe most of the time people have a revenue goal. Are you below it or are you above it? I mean, we're at the end of the third quarter. You're probably getting your third quarter numbers right now. You probably finished, the bookkeepers are probably bringing you those numbers now. Are you above or below? And what are you going to do in the last quarter to kind of maybe either make up some ground, or do you just have to accept it and go for the next strategy, right? So those are things to be thinking about. The next thing to be thinking about is taxes. And we had a really interesting discussion last night about this. Bellann and I were talking, we were in a mastermind group last night. And Bellann brought up that, your CPA is going to want you to, you spend money because that's going to reduce your taxes. But is reducing your taxes your goal, or is making your business better your goal, right? So nobody likes to pay taxes.
Good point.
Right. But, if like one of the ladies brought up the fact that her accountant told her last year to buy a new car, but she didn't need a new car. And that was because he wanted to reduce her expenses so that she could have less profit, so she would pay less taxes. But was that really a good goal? Not really, So we do things, and again, Bellann is kind of the master of this. About
I'll talk about it if you want. So the thing to think of, and Harry's right, you're going to have to get your bookkeeping up to speed so you'll know this information, right? At the end of the year. At the beginning of the fourth quarter is when this is what you need to be thinking of. What is my year going to look like? And what is next year going to look like? Am I having a great year right now? Or maybe I didn't do so well? Depending on what that scenario is, should tell you what direction you should go in. So let's say that you had a great year and you made more money, so you're going to pay more taxes. Well, we're not trying to avoid taxes. What we're trying to do is do some shifting. We call it income shifting or expense shifting. So let's say that you made some big sales, you have some big you have a big tax bill coming, and you're still closing out the year strong. Something that when I was a CFO, what we would do in this case, we would possibly bill some of our clients that paid us regular. We would pay them. We would drag our feet a little bit on that invoice so they would get it, and they wouldn't pay us until next year. And then that way it was next year's income. Okay.
Bingo. Bill January, December. Amen.
That's right. So then, but let's say the opposite is true in that you do have a high income, and thank goodness for that, right? But you don't want to have to go out and buy a new car because you're just trying to increase your expenses to reduce those taxes. Go out and do things that are going to benefit the business. So some of the things that I would do when I was a chief financial officer is I would, let's say we needed to pay bonuses, year-end bonuses. We would, instead of paying that, and everybody would be all excited, hey, I'm going to get my year-end bonus. Depending on what the year looked like for the company, we might pay those bonuses on December 31st or January 1. It meant nothing to the employee, but it depended on when those bonuses were paid out and what year, in 2024 or 2025. Sure. If I needed to reduce my expenses, I've already paid my property taxes, but I already know what they are for next year. Maybe I pay them in this year, right? I pay them in December instead of January. And then the same could be true for if you have company cars, equipment, lease payments, insurance, things like that. You're shifting those expenses and that income depending on what your tax year is, what your taxes are going to look like. And that's why you need to have those forecasts so that you'll make those decisions. It's not more or less money coming out of your pocket. It's just when. Right. But here's the main thing. When you owe taxes, let's say, that's a good thing. You're going to owe taxes and you're going to have to pay the IRS. But let's say, and then that money's gone forever. It helps our government. We need those taxes. We need our schools, our streets, and everything. I'm not saying don't do it, but you can also reduce your income by implementing retirement plans. There's a ton of different types of retirement plans. There's not one that meets all. You'd have to meet with someone like us to tell you which one is going to benefit you. And then at that place, it's not a dollar for dollar thing, but you create a retirement plan. It reduces your income, and that money is going to your benefit. It's that $5,000 in 40 years that Harry is talking about, and that's how it helps. It helps you. But here's the other thing that we want to tell you: when let's say your business is going, and someone has told you, or you have the idea, hey, I'm going to reduce these expenses so that my net profit is less, and then I owe less taxes. If you decide to retire at some point, and Social Security comes along and says, hey, you didn't make very much money, and so your Social Security is not going to be that high. You
Right.
didn't cheat the IRS. You actually cheated yourself, right?
Bingo.
The other thing is you're ready to sell your business and you took your net profits down to as little as possible. And somebody's going to come buy your business and they're going to go, hey, this company didn't make any money. Why would I buy that business? Right. So you have to work with somebody that's going to be able to look at that whole picture, lay it out and explain it to you and help you make the decisions that benefit you, not just that one point in time,
Bellann, I love that. I love that 35,000 foot view. That really solidifies it, because some decisions you make within a year may affect something down the road. So it's good. That goes back to advisorship. Be willing to surround yourself with smarter people.
Yeah, we all have our lane, right?
That's what I try to be the dumbest guy in the room. I've said that many times, but but yeah, that's great advice, because if somebody else trying to sell their business and they're making the value less, then that means they're going to have a harder time making the money in the end game that they could have made by just leaving things alone.
Yeah, right.
It's not the first time I've heard that, but that's the first time I heard it explained where I understood it. So thank you.
Good. Well, hopefully we added clarity to a bunch of things.
You did. This has been great conversation today. Thank you for the graphics that kind of showed some things, opened my eyes a little bit. Y'all getting into the consistency of the markets and how you guys can advise folks. So I'm going to say this: I highly recommend them. I know Harry from our network groups. Bellann, it's nice to meet you today. And any final thoughts from y'all?
We're just happy to be here. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it.
No problem.
Yes, thanks so much.
Yeah.
All right.
I would just say, whether you're an individual or a business owner, you are the CEO of you, right? And just remember that.
Chief bricklayer. That's right. I am. All right. Well, guys, thank you very much. We enjoyed having you on the Mansfield Buzz today. We will be back next Thursday at 2 Central Time with another guest. We got the Halloween special coming up. Do you trick your business or treat your business? We'll have 6 guests on in Halloween costumes on the 31st. You two need to come back and join us on that one, or come back and watch it. But y'all have a good day, and thanks for being on the Mansfield Buzz.
All our best to you.
Thanks again. Y'all have a great day. Appreciate the opportunity to share.